The hum of the old desk lamp held steady as I replayed the video of my own grandson calling me useless. Still, my hand stayed calm on the switch, refusing to flicker the light the way my pulse wanted to. As the lamp's warm buzz deepened, it filled the silence Tyler thought he'd stolen from me. While that sound lingered, I realized truth doesn't need to shout to outlast a lie. The same steady glow showed me exactly what his betrayal revealed about him. That's when I decided, some lights you dim and some you let burn right through the truth. Before the story begins, tell me, where are you watching from? I hope your day's gentle and calm. Please like, subscribe, and let's start our story together. Harold Whitman wasn't a man who checked social media often. Most days, he used his phone for weather updates, grocery lists, or the occasional photo of the mountains behind his Colorado home. But that afternoon, as the light faded across his living room, he noticed a string of notifications flashing across the top of his screen, all tagged with his grandson Tyler's username. At first, he assumed it was another school project or one of those harmless videos teenagers make. He almost ignored them, almost, but something in the volume of alerts, the way they came one after another, tugged at him. He clicked. The app opened to a video already halfway through its loop. It took only 3 seconds for Harold's heartbeat to stumble. Tyler stood center frame, phone tilted at that overconfident angle he used when he wanted attention. Behind him, 2 boys Harold didn't recognize snickered. And Tyler, his grandson, the same boy Harold used to teach wiring tricks in the garage, was laughing as he called him the useless old man. Not in a joking, affectionate way. Not in the playful tone Harold was used to hearing when Tyler used to sit at his kitchen counter and ask for second helpings of his chili. No, this was sharp, mocking, performed for the camera, performed for strangers. The clip replayed. Tyler smirked, gestured like he was showing off some broken appliance instead of a human being, and launched into another line about Harold being basically dead weight. The boys behind him howled, nudging each other like they'd just witnessed something clever. Harold felt his stomach tighten. Something icy moved through his chest, not anger at first, but a stunned kind of bewilderment. He watched again, searching Tyler's face for some flicker of regret or hesitation. There was none. Just pride. The video was crafted, framed, and posted to amuse an audience at Harold's expense. Then another detail struck him. At the top of the post, small but unmistakable, were the words uploaded via Whitman Wireless Family Plan. His plan, his name, his bill, the phone he'd been paying for since Tyler was 16 so the boy wouldn't feel disadvantaged at school. Harold exhaled slowly, the realization pressing into him with terrible clarity. Tyler hadn't just mocked him, he had done it using something Harold gave him out of love. Confusion thinned, replaced by something heavier. A hurt that sat low in his chest and spread like bruising. He set the phone on the table, but his hand stayed hovering as if unsure whether to pick it back up or push it further away. For a moment, the house felt too quiet. The old grandfather clock ticked steadily in the hallway, a sound he'd always found comforting. Now it reminded him only of time he had spent helping raise Tyler, teaching him patience, teaching him respect, believing, perhaps foolishly, that the boy had listened. Harold eased himself into his worn recliner. The leather creaked as he leaned back and his eyes stung, though he blinked the feeling away. He wasn't a man who cried easily, but betrayal had a particular weight, and this one settled into him with surprising force. He replayed memories he didn't ask for. Tyler at age 10, trailing behind him with a flashlight as they fixed the back porch wiring. Tyler at 13, asking him to sign the cast on his broken arm. Tyler at 16, promising he'd pay Grandpa back someday for the phone plan. How had that boy become this performer? This stranger who didn't mind humiliating the one person who never gave up on him? He reached for the phone again, not to watch the video this time, but to study the comments. They stung far more than he expected. People were laughing, encouraging Tyler, turning Harold into a punchline. A handful of them joked about getting rid of old folks, or asked if Harold even knew what the internet was. He felt something inside him tighten, a quiet shift from hurt toward something steadier, a resolve forming beneath the pain. He sat there for several minutes, letting everything settle, the betrayal, the public nature of it, the fact that Tyler had chosen attention over family without a second thought. Harold wasn't impulsive, he never had been. He wasn't about to react with shouting or anger, but he also was owing to ignore what he saw or pretend it didn't wound him. As the video looped once more and the sun dipped below the houses across the street, Harold drew a slow breath. Whatever drove Tyler to this, clout, immaturity, desperation for recognition, Harold needed to understand it, not to excuse it, not anymore, but to know exactly what he was dealing with. And with that thought, he set the phone down gently, the decision solidifying inside him. He would find out why Tyler did this, and what it meant for everything that came next. Harold didn't sleep much that night. The video kept replaying in his mind long after he'd turned off the lights, each loop digging a little deeper into him. By morning, he knew he couldn't carry the weight alone. Denise needed to hear what her son had done, not because he wanted to shame her, but because this was her child, and she had to understand how far things had gone. He drove to her house just after 9. The neighborhood was quiet, frost still clinging to the lawns. Denise opened the door wearing a confused half-smile, the kind you give when you're not sure whether the person on the porch is bringing good news or bad. Harold stepped inside, removed his hat, and didn't waste time. He showed her the video. Denise's expression tightened but didn't break the way Harold expected. She watched it once, then sighed, rubbing her forehead as though this were simply another inconvenience in an already crowded life. "Dad, he's just stressed," she said, her voice gentle, almost pleading. "You know how he gets when school's overwhelming. Kids make dumb mistakes online all the time. It doesn't mean anything." Harold stared at her, stunned by the quickness of her defense. "It means something to me," he said quietly. "He called me useless, Denise, publicly, and he posted it on an account I pay for." His voice was steady, but beneath it sat a tremor not of anger but of disappointment so deep it felt physical. Denise shook her head, already reaching for explanations that didn't fit. "He's been having a hard time with classes, and he's under pressure with whatever online thing he's trying to build. He didn't think it through. That's all." "No," Harold said, sharper this time. "This wasn't thoughtless. He planned this, he filmed it, he edited it, and he posted it. That's not stress, that's cruelty." He stopped there, not wanting to raise his voice. He had never believed in shouting people into understanding. Before Denise could respond, the front door slammed. Tyler walked in, backpack hanging from one shoulder, earbuds still in. He didn't even look surprised to see Harold. If anything, he looked inconvenienced. "Oh, great," he muttered, tossing his bag on the couch. "Are we doing this dramatic family meeting thing now?" Denise tried to intervene, but Harold lifted a hand. He wanted to hear the boy's explanation firsthand. "I saw your video," Harold said simply. Tyler rolled his eyes so hard it was practically theatrical. "It was a joke, Grandpa, seriously. Everyone knew it was a joke. You're taking it way too seriously." "A joke," Harold repeated, not raising his tone. "Son, nothing about it looked like a joke." Tyler shrugged as if that settled it. "It's content. People like exaggeration. It's not a big deal unless you make it a big deal." Harold watched him carefully. No remorse, no hesitation, only annoyance, the irritation of a teenager whose plans were being interrupted by adults asking inconvenient questions. The boy wouldn't even meet his eyes. Denise stepped between them, hands up as though she could smooth over the fracture forming in the room. "Tyler didn't mean anything by it. He's just—" "Don't," Harold said softly. "Please don't make excuses for him, not this time." Silence filled the space between them. Denise's face tightened, torn between loyalty to her father and the instinct to protect her son. Tyler crossed his arms, already bored with the conversation. Harold felt a heaviness settle in his chest, but beneath it something else stirred, something steadier than pain. He looked at both of them, realizing that whatever he'd hoped for, an honest apology, a flicker of recognition, a moment of clarity, wasn't coming. Not today. "I think I've heard enough," Harold said, adjusting his jacket. "I need some air." He turned toward the door, ignoring Tyler's exaggerated sigh and Denise's quiet, uncertain dad. He stepped outside into the cold morning, breathed in, and let the door close behind him. The air felt sharper than when he'd arrived, and for a moment he let it cut through the disappointment sitting in his chest. He walked slowly toward his truck, hands tucked into his pockets. The hurt was still there, but it no longer swallowed everything. Underneath it, faint but unmistakable, something had begun to take shape, a seed of resolve, the realization that he didn't have to tolerate disrespect just because it came from family. That love didn't mean accepting humiliation. And Harold opened the truck door and paused before getting in. The morning was still quiet, but everything around him felt different, as though the ground itself was shifting. He wasn't sure yet what he would do next. But he knew one thing with absolute clarity. He wasn't going to let himself be taken advantage of anymore. Harold didn't expect things to escalate so quickly. After the miserable conversation at Denise's house, he'd hoped Tyler would cool off, maybe even take the video down. But 2 days later, while Harold was sweeping leaves off his porch, his phone buzzed again. Another notification. Same username. Same uneasy feeling gathering in his chest. He opened the app, and there it was, a new clip. Tyler wasn't bold enough to say Harold's name this time, but the reference was unmistakable. He stood in a classroom hallway, smirking into the camera while talking about people who should have retired from breathing a long time ago. A boy behind him laughed and pretended to use a walker. The caption read, "Living fossils, am I right?" And the comments were worse. Brutal jokes about old age, about fragility, about being a burden. Harold didn't have to be named. Everyone who had seen the first video already knew who Tyler meant. That afternoon, at the community center where Harold spent most of his mornings volunteering, the video came up again. This time, he didn't have the option of pretending it didn't exist. His friend George approached him gently, phone in hand, eyes full of sympathy. "Harry, I'm sorry, I think you should see this." Soon, another friend stepped forward. Then another. They weren't mocking him, but the fact that they'd all seen it, that it had reached this far, tightened something in Harold's chest. He felt exposed. Like the private dignity he had maintained his entire life had been dragged into a spotlight he never asked for. As they scrolled through the comments with him, Harold noticed patterns. People recognizing Tyler from the first video, encouraging him to do more content about his grandfather. Viewers asking for stories about Harold's supposed quirks, urging Tyler to milk it while it's hot. It hit him then. This wasn't impulsive anymore. This was intentional. Tyler had found an audience that rewarded cruelty, and he was feeding them. On the drive home, Harold kept his phone on the passenger seat, screen dark but heavy with meaning. He thought of all the years he'd tried to teach Tyler about respect. He thought of the holidays, the times he'd watched the boy when Denise had late shifts, the afternoons spent fixing things around her house. None of that seemed to matter now. What mattered to Tyler was attention, digital applause, validation from strangers who would disappear the moment the trend died. That evening, Harold called Mark, not to start a fight, not even to seek revenge, but because he needed clarity. His old friend listened without interrupting, his tone sharpening as Harold recounted both videos. Then Mark said the words Harold hadn't expected but somehow needed to hear. "Start documenting everything." Harold frowned. "You think it's that serious?" "Harry," Mark replied, calm and measured, "what he's doing qualifies as harassment if it continues. And if sponsors or platforms get involved, that's commercial use of your likeness, even if he doesn't say your name. Save screenshots, every post, every comment. People who escalate online rarely stop on their own." The idea of collecting evidence against his own grandson made Harold's stomach twist, but deep down he understood. He thanked Mark, hung up and sat at the kitchen table for several minutes, staring at his folded hands. The world felt faster, sharper, more dangerous than the one he grew up in. A place where a teenager with a phone could dismantle a man's reputation in a weekend. Later that night, Denise called. She'd heard about the second video and sounded exhausted. But instead of acknowledging the seriousness, she sighed into the receiver and repeated the line that was quickly becoming a barrier between them. "It's harmless teen stuff, Dad. He's acting out. It'll blow over." Harold closed his eyes, trying not to let frustration spill into his voice. "It isn't harmless, and it isn't stopping." She didn't argue, which somehow felt worse. It meant she didn't know what to say because she didn't want to see what was right in front of her. After they hung up, Harold opened the first video again. Then the second. His hands were steady as he began taking screenshots, not out of spite, but out of necessity. Each saved image felt like placing a brick on an invisible wall between himself and the boy he once believed he'd never have to protect himself from. By the time he finished, the house had gone quiet, and the only sound was the soft hum of the refrigerator. Harold set his phone down, exhaling slowly. The night pressed in around him, calm but heavy with uncertainty. He didn't know how far Tyler would take this, but he knew one thing with growing certainty. The line had been crossed, and it wasn't going to uncross itself. Harold wasn't prepared for the kind of twist that arrived 3 days later. He had gone to the community center early that morning, mostly to distract himself, to pretend for a few hours that life hadn't taken such an ugly turn. But while he was playing a quiet game of checkers with George, a younger volunteer hurried over with his phone out, face tight with something between disbelief and anger. "Harold, you need to see this, now." Harold took the phone cautiously, expecting another cruel comment thread or mocking video. Instead, he froze. On the screen was a brightly colored advertisement, a sponsored post from a mid-sized tech accessory brand. The caption read, "Even your old man can use this. Check out my new collab smiling face with sunglasses useless old man series." And there, embedded in the ad, were stills from Tyler's original mocking video, and worse, 2 candid photos of Harold. Photos taken at family gatherings, at his own kitchen table, smiling gently at the camera, unaware they would ever be used this way. Harold felt something inside him fracture. This wasn't just attention-seeking anymore. This was business. Tyler had turned his humiliation into content, and now into income. The ad continued with a promo code, TYLEROLDMAN. Harold reread it, feeling heat pool behind his eyes. The cruelty of it wasn't loud or violent. It was calculated, polished, monetized. He scrolled further and saw Tyler posing with a sponsored product box, tossing a glare at the camera as though mocking Harold again. The comments applauded the funny series, begging for more clips about the grandpa character. As if Harold weren't a person at all. He returned the phone to the volunteer with a quiet thank you, then stepped outside into the crisp Colorado air, needing space to steady his breath. Sponsorship, photos, promo codes. This was a whole new level, one that made Tyler's behavior not just cruel but legally dangerous. Harold didn't hesitate. He called Mark. When his attorney friend answered, Harold's voice trembled only once. "Mark, he's using my pictures, in ads. He's getting paid to make me a joke." Mark asked him to send screenshots. A minute later, after reviewing them, his tone sharpened immediately. "This is commercial exploitation, Harry. He used your likeness without permission. And that sponsorship contract, it ties him directly to monetizing your identity." Harold leaned against the cold brick wall of the community center. "What does that mean for me?" "It means," Mark said, "he's crossed into actionable territory. If his contract requires recurring content, he's legally committed to continuing the harassment. That makes this bigger, much bigger." Harold closed his eyes, imagining Tyler signing a contract that essentially required him to mock his grandfather again and again. For money, for clout, for a digital applause that evaporates as quickly as it forms. He called Denise next, hoping for a moment of shared outrage, some clarity from a mother finally forced to see the line her son had crossed. But Denise sighed the moment he explained. "Dad, it's still just online stuff. Brands pay for silly videos all the time. Tyler's trying to build something. He didn't mean it personally." "Not personal." Harold felt the words settle like a weight on his ribs. Denise wasn't malicious. She was blindsided, overwhelmed, clinging to the easiest explanation even if it meant dismissing the reality right in front of her. He spoke gently but firmly. "He used my photos, Denise, without permission. He's earning money by mocking me." She paused but didn't shift. "He'll grow out of it." Harold ended the call with a polite goodbye, but inside something had changed. Something quiet and resolute. He walked slowly to his truck, noticing how steady his steps felt, even as anger and sorrow pressed beneath his ribs. The humiliation wasn't what shaped the moment, it was the clarity. Tyler wasn't just being reckless, he was profiting off Harold's dignity. And now Harold understood something essential. If Tyler wanted to use his name, his image, his life as content, then Harold would use what he had: experience, patience, and the full measure of a man who'd spent 74 years learning how to stand his ground. He started the engine, watching his reflection in the rearview mirror, older, yes, but far from useless. This wasn't revenge yet. Not even close. But the shift had begun, and Harold knew exactly who he would call next. Harold sat at his kitchen table with a stack of envelopes beside him, the late afternoon light settling across the room like dust. After the sponsorship discovery, he felt a shift inside, not rage, not panic, but a cold, measured awareness. If Tyler was using him for profit, Harold needed to know every angle Tyler was benefiting from. That included the phone plan he'd been paying. For the past 4 years, something Mark said echoed in his mind. Everything connected to his content matters now, everything. So Harold logged into the wireless account he rarely touched, expecting to confirm the usual monthly charge. Instead, his eyes widened as he scrolled. The bill was nearly double what it used to be. Line by line, he saw upgrades, premium data packages, hotspot extensions, cloud storage expansions, international add-ons, most of them activated within the last 8 weeks. 8 weeks, the exact period when Tyler's new content push had begun. Harold leaned closer, adjusting his reading glasses. None of these changes had been authorized by him. Tyler had quietly added them, relying on Harold's trust, and perhaps on the assumption that Harold didn't check digital statements. It wasn't just hidden spending. It was entitlement layered on top of humiliation. Tyler was using Harold's money to build the very platform he used to mock him. He took a slow breath, steadying himself. Anger rose, not explosively, but like something old and deep being stirred. Still, he didn't slam anything. He didn't curse. Instead, he clicked download statement. Then the next month, and the next. Soon he had a folder of PDFs neatly saved on his desktop, each one a small ledger of betrayal. Then he opened a blank document and began listing every unauthorized upgrade, every extra charge, every timestamp. He wasn't acting out of spite, he was preparing. Mark had told him documentation mattered, and Harold believed in doing things the right way, the thorough way. If this situation went further, he wanted the truth laid out cleanly, fact by fact. As he typed, his phone buzzed. A message from Tyler. No greeting, no explanation, just entitlement dressed as urgency. "Hey, can you increase my data? I'm using it for business stuff. Video uploads are slowing." Harold stared at the screen, the words almost comically arrogant. Business stuff. That was the phrase. The same business built on calling him useless. The same business that now carried a sponsorship contract requiring more humiliation. He set the phone down, letting the message sit unanswered. His jaw tightened, but he kept his breathing even. Responding in anger wouldn't help. Responding at all might make things worse. He understood now that Tyler wasn't just inconsiderate, He was fully invested in a world where clicks mattered more than family, where someone else's dignity became a prop. The phone buzzed again. "I need it today. Don't make this difficult." Harold exhaled slowly. He remembered Tyler at 12, asking permission before touching any of Harold's tools. That boy was long gone. This version believed Harold owed him bandwidth so he could continue tearing him down. He didn't reply. Instead, he called Mark. Mark answered on the second ring. "Harry, what's the latest?" Harold explained everything: the upgrades, the ballooning bills, the messages demanding more. He heard Mark typing in the background, processing the information with that crisp legal focus Harold had come to rely on. "This is good," Mark finally said. "Painful, yes, but good for your case. It shows financial exploitation tied directly to the content. Don't confront him about it. Not yet. Play the long game." Harold nodded, even though Mark couldn't see him. "I can do that." "I know you can," Mark said. "Tyler's digging his own hole. Your job is simply to keep a record of where the dirt lands." After they hung up, Harold sat quietly for a moment, hands folded on the table. The house felt still, as if holding its breath with him. Playing the long game wasn't natural for everyone, but Harold had spent a lifetime fixing broken wiring, solving problems patiently, step by step. He knew how to wait for the right moment. He reopened the wireless account and clicked on a different tab: Plan Management. There it was, the option to remove a line, transfer ownership, or downgrade services. He didn't select anything yet, but he studied the page carefully, the way a man studies a blueprint before beginning the work. Tyler might think he held all the power, the followers, the sponsorship, the momentum, but he'd forgotten something simple. Everything he built was sitting on a foundation Harold provided. And Harold was done footing the bill for his own humiliation. He closed the laptop with a quiet click, the decision settling inside him like a steel beam locked into place. Change was coming, and this time, Harold would be the one holding the tools. Harold had just settled into his recliner with a mug of coffee when the front door slammed so hard the picture frames rattled against the wall. He didn't need to look up to know who it was. Tyler's voice carried down the hallway before he even appeared, loud, impatient, already irritated that the world wasn't bending fast enough to his will. "Grandpa, seriously, you didn't answer my messages." Harold set the mug down carefully, willing himself to stay calm. "You don't live here, Tyler. You can't just barge in." Tyler ignored the words completely. He stormed into the living room, phone already raised, camera pointed directly at Harold. The red recording light blinked. "Say that again," Tyler said, smirking. "It'll make a great clip." Harold stiffened but didn't give him the reaction he wanted. Tyler circled him like a reporter chasing a soundbite, trying to provoke something: anger, fear, anything he could turn into content. "Come on," he taunted, zooming in. "Tell everyone why you're being difficult. Tell them why you cut my data. People love a grumpy old man meltdown." The humiliation was what hurt most. It was the entitlement. Tyler didn't see a boundary because, in his mind, Harold wasn't a person with dignity. He was material, fuel, a walking prop. Harold looked at him evenly. "Turn the camera off, Tyler. You don't have my permission to film in my home." Tyler scoffed. "It's fine. I'm not showing anything private, just you being you." He swung the camera closer. "Come on, give me something real. People eat that up." Harold rose slowly from the chair, steady but firm. "I said no." The refusal seemed to amuse Tyler more than anything. He laughed, stepping back only to frame Harold better. "Dude, chill. You're going viral because of me. You should be grateful." Before Harold could answer, a sharp knock hit the front door, followed by the creak of it opening cautiously. "Mr. Whitman," a woman's voice called. "It's Officer Cole." Tyler rolled his eyes dramatically. "Oh my God, are you kidding me? You called the cops on me." He panned the camera toward the door, eager to turn the moment into spectacle. Officer Brenda Cole stepped inside, calm and composed, one hand resting near her duty belt but not on it. Her gaze swept the room, landing first on Harold, then narrowing when she saw the phone in Tyler's hand. "We received a noise complaint from a neighbor," she said. "Something about yelling and forced entry." "I didn't force anything," Tyler said quickly. "This is my grandpa's house. I can come here whenever I want." Officer Cole raised an eyebrow. "Is that true, Mr. Whitman? Did you give him permission to enter?" Harold shook his head slowly. "No, ma'am. He walked in without knocking, and he's filming me without consent." Tyler barked a laugh. "Consent? It's just a video. Everyone films everything now. You can't police creativity." Officer Cole stepped closer, her expression sharpening. "You're an adult and he's an adult. Filming someone in their home without permission can cross into harassment. I'm advising you to stop now." The warning only fed Tyler's arrogance. He grinned at his screen, addressing his invisible audience. "Hear that, guys? Harassment. Guess the world can't handle a little content." Harold watched the exchange with a dull ache forming behind his ribs, not because of Tyler's defiance, but because of how deep the delusion had rooted itself. Tyler believed his career made him untouchable, above basic respect, above law, above family. Officer Cole stepped between them. "Turn the camera off," she said firmly. Tyler hesitated, then reluctantly lowered his phone, muttering under his breath. But even stripped of the recording, his attitude didn't shift. He strutted toward the door as if he were the one granting mercy. "This is ridiculous," he said. "I'll talk to Mom, she'll straighten this out." When he was gone, Officer Cole turned to Harold with a gentler expression. "Are you all right?" Harold nodded, though the truth was more complicated. "Thank you for coming." "Keep documenting everything," she said. "If this continues, we may need to take formal steps." After she left, the house fell quiet until Harold's phone buzzed. A message from Denise. "Dad, Tyler told me what happened. You're overreacting. He's stressed. Stop treating him like a criminal." Harold stared at the words, feeling something inside him shift. Denise didn't see it. She didn't recognize the danger, not just to Harold but to Tyler himself. She was blind to the escalation happening right in front of her. Harold placed the phone face down on the table. He stood alone in the silence of his own home, more aware than ever that the storm had only begun, and he was the only one willing to face how dark it could get. The morning after Tyler barged into his home, Harold woke with a clarity he hadn't felt in weeks. No anger clouded his thoughts, no trembling sorrow, just purpose. Steady, measured purpose. He dressed neatly, grabbed the folder of documents he'd organized, billing statements, screenshots, timestamps, and drove to the local phone company. Snow flurries dusted the windshield as he pulled into the parking lot, the kind of quiet Colorado morning that made everything feel sharper, more deliberate. Inside, the young customer service rep listened as Harold explained the situation in calm, methodical detail. He didn't embellish. He didn't vent. He simply laid out the facts: unauthorized upgrades, financial misuse, escalating harassment tied to the device on his plan. The rep nodded sympathetically. "We can absolutely remove his line, sir, and disable any further changes. Once we do, he'll lose access immediately." Harold hesitated for only a moment. It wasn't the act of cutting off a phone line that weighed on him. It was what it symbolized. A severing. A boundary that should have never needed drawing. But he thought of the videos of Tyler barging into his home with a camera, of Denise insisting he was overreacting, and the decision settled firmly. "Do it," Harold said. The rep tapped at the keyboard. "All upgrades disabled. Tyler Whitman's line removed from your plan." She paused. "He'll get a system notification and then lose service." Harold thanked her and stepped outside, exhaling into the cold air. A strange stillness followed him as he climbed into his truck. He didn't feel victorious. He felt resolute. This was step one, not revenge, not punishment, but protection. a line drawn to stop Tyler from using Harold's resources to fuel his destructive spiral. He was halfway home when his phone buzzed repeatedly. Notifications from social media he rarely checked. Out of curiosity and caution, he opened one. There on the screen, Tyler was live streaming from a school hallway. "Guys, today's been insane," he was saying, pacing dramatically. "I'm about to drop some major tea later." And then the screen froze. The comments exploded. "Bro, what happened?" Stream died. The live stream crashed entirely, cutting off mid-sentence. A second later, the video disappeared. Harold pictured Tyler staring down at his suddenly lifeless phone, panic replacing arrogance. The thought didn't bring him joy, just an eerie sense of inevitability. 10 minutes later, Harold turned onto his street and saw Tyler sprinting down the sidewalk toward his house, face contorted with rage, phone clutched uselessly in his hand. "You cut my service," Tyler screamed before Harold had even stepped out of the truck. "What the hell, Grandpa? I was live." Harold closed the truck door with deliberate calm. "I removed a line I've been paying for. That's all." "That's all?" Tyler shouted, voice cracking with fury. "Do you have any idea what you just did? I lost viewers, I lost momentum. You ruined my whole day." "It's not my responsibility to fund your online career," Harold said softly. Tyler didn't hear him, he didn't want to. He paced the driveway like a trapped animal, whipping his dead phone through the air as if trying to conjure a signal. "Turn it back on. Right now. I need my data for work." "It's done," Harold replied, "and it's not changing." Tyler stopped pacing. His chest heaved and something dark flashed in his eyes. "You think you can control me? You think you can embarrass me like this?" He stepped closer, invading Harold's space, jabbing a finger at him. "I swear I will ruin you online. You hear me? I'll destroy your name. People will hate you. You have no idea what I can do." Harold didn't flinch. Instead, he lifted his own phone subtly, thumb pressing record. Tyler didn't notice. C didn't care enough to look. His threats poured out unchecked, fueled by entitlement and panic. A moment later, Harold's phone buzzed with a message from Mark. He had texted earlier about heading to a meeting. Now he'd responded, "Keep calm. Don't argue. Don't escalate. Document everything. This is part of the long game." Harold felt something settle inside him, an anchor against the storm of Tyler's shouting. He slipped the phone back into his pocket, letting Tyler's rant run its course. Not engaging wasn't weakness. It was strategy, protection, preparation. Finally, Tyler hurled a final glare at him, eyes burning with humiliation. "You'll regret this," he spat. "I swear you will." Harold watched him storm off, breath clouding in the cold air. He didn't shout after him. He didn't apologize. He didn't chase. He simply stood there, calm and still, knowing with absolute clarity. Step one was complete, and Tyler had no idea how much had just shifted beneath him. Harold thought the storm might calm after the phone line incident. He didn't expect gratitude, but he hoped, foolishly, that Tyler would step back, breathe, think. Instead, the retaliation came sharper, uglier, and far more dangerous than anything before. It arrived on a Sunday morning just after sunrise. Harold was making oatmeal when his phone started vibrating non-stop on the counter. Messages, missed calls, screenshots pouring in from friends at the community center. At first he feared someone was hurt, but when he tapped the first notification, his breath caught. Tyler had uploaded a new video. And this time it wasn't mocking, it was malicious. The video showed Tyler sitting in his car, fake trembling in his voice, eyes red as though he'd forced tears. "I didn't want to say anything," he said to the camera, "but my grandfather, he's not stable. He screams at me. He throws things. He's scary. I'm honestly afraid to be around him." Harold felt his mouth go dry. He kept watching, even as his chest tightened. Tyler sniffled dramatically. "People think he's this sweet old man, but behind closed doors he's different. I just want people to know what I'm dealing with. Please don't attack me for speaking my truth." Fabricated, performed, empty. But the internet didn't know that. Within an hour, the video spread. It wasn't massive, but big enough, shared by small creators, reposted on forums, clipped into reaction videos. Comments spiraled with dangerous speed. Old people can be toxic. Believe victims. He looks genuinely scared. Others were crueler, painting Harold as a monster. Harold sank into his kitchen chair, feeling a coldness settle in his limbs. Of all the things Tyler had done, this cut deepest, not because strangers believed it, but because Tyler had crafted it deliberately, calculated it, accused him of being the very opposite of the man he'd spent his whole life trying to be. Another message buzzed, George, then Ellen, then Curtis, all with the same worried tone. Harold, is this true? Please tell us it's not true. Harold responded slowly, calmly, assuring each of them that none of it happened. But behind every reassurance was a heaviness, a realization that once lies hit the internet, truth had to fight uphill to catch up. He forwarded the video to Mark. Mark called within minutes. I saw it. Sit down, Harry. I am sitting, Harold whispered. There's metadata in that clip, Mark said. Give me a few minutes. Harold waited, heart thudding. When Mark called back, his tone had hardened. He filmed part of that video inside your house. Harold blinked. What? The lighting, the background, the reflection in the window. It's your living room. He shot it without your knowledge. A slow pulse of heat spread through Harold's chest. Not anger exactly, but something firmer, a boundary pushed too far. Mark, he's accusing me of abusing him. And that, Mark said, is defamation. Coupled with unauthorized filming, you have legal standing, strong standing. Before Harold could absorb that, there was a knock on the door. When he opened it, Officer Brenda Cole stood there, hat tucked under her arm, expression grim but sympathetic. I've seen the video, she said. Harold stepped aside to let her in. She remained near the doorway, not wanting to intrude. Mr. Whitman, this goes beyond disrespect now. Fabricated claims of abuse filmed inside your home, posted publicly, that qualifies as digital harassment. And defamation. If you choose to file, we can take official action. Harold rubbed a hand across his face. He was tired of being blindsided, tired of being made into content, tired of watching the boy he raised drift into someone he no longer recognized. What does filing do? It creates a legal record, Officer Cole said, and it means Tyler can no longer hide behind the idea that this is just online drama. It holds him accountable. He thought of Denise, how she would react, how she'd insist again that Tyler was just stressed. But Harold also thought of the videos, the threats, the sponsorships, the lies. He nodded. I'd like to file. Officer Cole offered a quiet, respectful nod. We'll handle it. They completed the paperwork at his dining table. Harold's hands were steady the entire time. When she left, the house felt strangely lighter, not safe, not yet, but no longer defenseless. Somewhere across town, Tyler was probably celebrating his latest surge of attention, completely unaware of the consequences now aligned against him. He didn't know Harold had filed a formal complaint. He didn't know metadata exposed where he'd filmed. He didn't know the law was no longer a distant threat. It was engaged, documented, activated. And as Harold closed the door, a new understanding settled inside him. Tyler was still playing for clout, but Harold was done playing altogether. By Monday morning, the quiet rhythm of Harold's usual routine had changed. The community center, the place that had always felt like a refuge, buzzed with tension the moment he walked through the doors. Conversations paused, heads turned, but it wasn't pity on their faces. It was loyalty, concern, determination. Linda, the program coordinator, approached him first. She looked troubled, though her voice stayed firm. Harold, we saw the video, all of us, and I want you to know, nobody here believes any of it. He tried to smile, but the gesture felt brittle. Thank you, Linda. Behind her, George ambled over, shaking his head. Kids spinning stories for clicks. Anyone who's spent 5 minutes with you knows he's lying. His jaw tightened. Half the folks in that comment section wouldn't know truth if it bit 'em. Harold felt a quiet warmth beneath the heaviness in his chest. Not joy, just the relief of being seen clearly when someone else was trying so desperately to distort him. A group of younger volunteers, high schoolers who looked up to Harold, gathered around next. One of them, a lanky kid named Aaron, shoved his phone out. We commented, all of us, told people Tyler was lying. Another added, my sister replied too. She's got a big following. She called him out for weaponizing false accusations. Harold blinked, touched but wary. I appreciate you kids standing up for me, but you don't need to fight my battles. We're not fighting, Aaron said. We're telling the truth. But truth had triggered something in Tyler. By lunchtime, news spread around the community center that Tyler had been deleting comments, especially the ones defending Harold. Screenshots circulated showing Tyler arguing with strangers online, lashing out, trying to reframe himself as a victim. His tone grew erratic, defensive, then hostile. Each deletion, each angry reply, was another crack in the glossy facade Tyler had tried to build. Harold watched it unfold from a cautious distance. He didn't engage. He didn't comment. Instead, he added each screenshot sent to him into the carefully organized folder on his computer. Evidence mattered. Consistency mattered. And Tyler, unknowingly, was handing Harold everything he would eventually need. That evening, Harold stopped by Denise's house at her request. She opened the door already looking defeated, shoulders slumped with a weight she could no longer ignore. I saw the comments, she said quietly. I saw what his followers were saying and what he was saying back. Her voice wavered. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was this bad. I should've. Harold touched her arm gently. You believe the best in him. That's not a flaw. Denise shook her head, eyes shining. But I let it blind me. I kept telling myself it was harmless. But now he's attacking you, lying about you. He won't even listen when I try to talk to him. He just keeps saying you're destroying his platform. Harold didn't respond right away. Not because he lacked words, but because Denise finally saw what he had been seeing for weeks. She wasn't making excuses now. She was facing a truth she had hoped she'd never have to confront. I'm trying to help him, she whispered, but he isn't reachable. Harold exhaled, steady and calm. Then he'll have to face consequences. Denise nodded, though the fear in her eyes lingered. She wasn't afraid of Harold. She was afraid of what Tyler would do next. Later that night, while Harold sorted through more screenshots, there was a knock at his door. Officer Cole stood on the porch, hat pulled low against the wind, her presence steady as ever. Mr. Whitman, she said once inside, I reviewed your complaint with my supervisor. Given the fabricated video, the unauthorized filming, and now the retaliatory online behavior, it's time we talk about a restraining order. Harold sat down slowly. He had expected this conversation eventually, but hearing it spoken aloud shifted something in him. A restraining order wasn't symbolic. It was formal, legal, serious. Officer Cole continued. It would create strict boundaries, digital and physical. He'd be prohibited from contacting Y.O., filming you, posting about you, and any violation would carry immediate consequences. Harold folded his hands, staring at the table. I don't want to destroy his life. You're not, she said gently. He's sabotaging his own life. You're protecting yours. Silence lingered between them until Harold finally nodded. I'll pursue it, but not yet. I want the timing to be right. Officer Cole studied him for a moment, then nodded with understanding. When you're ready, call me. We'll file it together. After she left, Harold stood at the window, watching the headlights disappear down the street. The world outside looked quiet still, but he felt the pressure building beneath everything, inch by inch. Tyler was spiraling publicly. Denise was finally seeing the truth. The community stood behind Harold. The law was prepared to intervene. All that remained was the moment when everything converged. And Harold knew it was getting closer. By midweek, the ripple effects of Tyler's fabricated abuse video had begun shifting in ways he clearly hadn't anticipated. At the community center, Harold overheard two younger volunteers talking quietly near the vending machine. "Did you see the sponsor's comment?" one whispered. "Yeah, they're distancing themselves." They asked him to clarify the accusations. Harold felt a subtle shiver move through him. Sponsors rarely cared about morality, only optics, and Tyler's optics had soured fast. That afternoon, Mark called. "Harry, the sponsor's legal team reached out to Tyler," he said, sounding almost grimly impressed. "They saw the backlash, and they're questioning whether he misrepresented his situation to secure the partnership. They're asking for documentation." Harold closed his eyes. Documentation of lies. Exactly. Sponsors don't want defamation tied to their brand. If they confirm he fabricated the story, and we have evidence he did, his contract may not survive the week. Harold didn't feel triumphant. What he felt was heavier, quieter. Watching Tyler dig himself deeper wasn't satisfying, it was heartbreaking. But this was Tyler's doing, his choices, his consequences. Mark exhaled on the other end. "Just be prepared. Panic makes impulsive people reckless." The warning arrived just hours before the next knock at Harold's door. Loud, rapid, impatient. Harold didn't even need to look through the window to know who it was. He opened the door slowly. Tyler stood on the porch, breathless, wild-eyed, his phone clutched in one hand like a lifeline. "Grandpa, you have to help me. Right now." Harold didn't step aside. "What do you need?" "A response video," Tyler said, pushing past him as if he owned the space. "I need you to sit down and say you didn't mean to make things look bad, or that we were joking, or that you're not actually mad, just something to calm people down." Harold stared at him, stunned. "Tyler, no." Tyler spun around. "Why not? This is fixable if you'd stop acting ancient and dramatic. Just come in frame and say you overreacted." Harold's voice stayed low, steady. "I won't help you lie to cover up another lie." Tyler's jaw clenched. "It's not lying, it's controlling the narrative." "No," Harold said, "it's deception, and I won't participate." For a moment, Tyler looked genuinely rattled, not remorseful, but terrified of losing something he thought was owed to him. "You don't get it," he snapped. "If I lose this sponsorship, I lose everything I've built. My entire audience is watching how I handle this." Harold met his eyes, unflinching. "Then handle it with honesty." Tyler scoffed like the word was foreign. "Honesty doesn't get views." "Then maybe you're building the wrong thing." Tyler stepped forward, lowering his voice into something colder. "Do you know they're threatening to cancel? They said if this turns into a legal issue, it violates the contract. They want proof I wasn't harassing you." "Proof?" He laughed sharply, frantic. "So I need the video, right now." Harold felt the weight of Mark's earlier warning settle fully. Tyler wasn't here to reconcile. He was here because he saw Harold as a tool, one that could salvage his collapsing digital empire. "I won't be in your videos," Harold said. "Not now, not again." Tyler's face twisted. "You're ruining my life." Mark's name flashed across Harold's phone just then. He answered without leaving Tyler's line of sight. "He's here," Harold said quietly. Mark didn't need context. "Put me on speaker." Harold did. "Tyler," Mark said, voice crisp and lawyerly, "your sponsor is questioning you because your actions, your content, suggest targeted harassment. If they determine that's true, your contract can be voided immediately. No payout, potential penalties." Tyler's eyes widened. "Penalties? What penalties?" "For causing reputational harm to the brand," Mark said. "For breaching ethics clauses. For using fabricated narratives for profit. They could sue. Depending on wording, they could even demand reimbursement." Tyler Stagg aired back like the words had weight. No, no, this isn't my fault. It's his fault. He jabbed a finger toward Harold. If he hadn't overreacted, none of this would be happening. Tyler, Mark said sharply, your grandfather did nothing except exist. You made content at his expense. You escalated. This is the outcome. Tyler snapped the phone away from Harold and ended the call with a vicious tap. His breath came fast, furious. You're doing this on purpose, he said. You want to see me fail. Harold shook his head slowly. No, I want you to stop hurting people. Tyler's expression hardened. He shoved past Harold toward the door. This isn't over. You'll regret not helping me. Then he stormed out, slamming the door behind him with enough force to rattle the glass. Harold stood alone in the sudden quiet, the echo of Tyler's anger lingering in the room. He walked to the window, watching Tyler stride down the street, phone dead, sponsorship slipping, lies unraveling. Mark's voice rang in Harold's head. Be prepared. Panic makes impulsive people reckless. Harold exhaled slowly. Tyler's next attack was coming, and Harold needed to be ready for it. Denise called Harold early the next morning, her voice shaking before she even said hello. Dad, can you come over, please? There was something strained in her tone, and exhaustion weighted with disbelief. Harold didn't hesitate. He grabbed his coat and keys and drove to her house, the cold Colorado air biting through the quiet suburban streets. When he stepped inside, Denise was already pacing the living room. Eyes red, hair pulled into a messy knot that revealed just how long the night had been. Tyler stood near the hallway, arms crossed, jaw tight, glaring at the floor like a teenager caught stealing even though he was long past the age when that kind of posture was excusable. Denise turned sharply toward him. Tell Grandpa what you told me, she demanded. Her voice cracked not from anger but from heartbreak. Tyler's expression hardened. I didn't do anything. Everyone's against me. The internet blew it out of proportion. Mom, you don't understand how online pressure works. Stop, she snapped, and the word hung in the air like a crack of thunder. Stop blaming the world for decisions you made. Harold stood quietly by the armchair, watching them. Denise had always been gentle, patient, endlessly forgiving. To see her this fiercely resolute meant something inside her had finally snapped. You lied about your grandfather, she said, voice trembling but firm. You filmed him in his home. You used him to get attention. And now your sponsors are questioning your behavior, and instead of taking responsibility, you're blaming him. She gestured toward Harold, her face breaking with disbelief. How did we get here, Tyler? How did my son become this cruel? Tyler scoffed, rolling his eyes, but Harold saw the panic beneath the bravado. This is all being blown up because Grandpa keeps acting like a victim. He's sending people after me. He won't help me correct things. He's making everything worse. Harold's chest tightened at the accusation, but he stayed silent. This wasn't his moment. This was Denise's. You're spiraling, she whispered, and you refuse to see it. Tyler threw up his hands. Oh my God, everyone's so dramatic. It's not even that big of a deal. People fake stuff online all the time. Denise stared at him as if seeing him clearly for the first time. But you didn't fake something about a stranger. You faked it about family, about your grandfather, who raised you, who paid for everything you have. Her voice dropped, almost a whisper. How could you? Harold gently placed a hand on her shoulder. It was the only thing he could offer, the silent support she had refused to accept earlier in the ordeal. She leaned into him for a brief moment, tears finally spilling. Tyler looked away, jaw clenched, trapped between arrogance and fear. Later, after he stormed into his room and slammed the door, Denise collapsed onto the couch. I don't know what to do with him anymore, Dad, she whispered. I try to reach him, but he's somewhere else, somewhere I can't follow. Harold sat beside her, speaking softly. You've done everything a mother could, but he has to face the consequences now, not because we want to punish him, but because he's destroying himself. She nodded, wiping at her eyes. Mark said there might be legal action coming. Is that true? Harold didn't hide it. Yes, he's preparing the civil filings just in case. Denise closed her eyes, absorbing the blow. If it comes to that, I won't stand in the way. He needs a wake-up call. That afternoon, Harold met with Mark at his home office. Mark spread neatly organized documents across the table: incident logs, screenshots, financial records, timestamps, metadata. "We're close," he said. "If he escalates again, we file. Everything is ready." The weight of it all settled over Harold, but not with fear, with certainty. Officer Cole stopped by later as part of her regular check-ins. She scanned Harold's notes, nodded at the updates, and examined the newest screenshots of Tyler's online behavior. "He's posting nonstop," she said. "Erratic stuff, contradictions, impulsive videos. He's unraveling under pressure." Harold knew. He'd been watching quietly, screenshot after screenshot, capturing Tyler's dissent: late-night rants, defensive posts, cryptic lines about being betrayed by family and silenced by the system. Each one was another thread coming loose. "Stay steady," Officer Cole advised. "These moments, when someone spirals, are when they make their biggest mistakes. Let him make them. You just keep the record clean." Harold nodded. He wasn't angry anymore. Anger had burned out days ago. What remained was something colder, sharper, a clarity forged through weeks of humiliation and heartbreak. That night Harold sat alone at his kitchen table, a cup of untouched tea cooling beside him. He scrolled through Tyler's latest posts. The chaos was undeniable, the desperation unmistakable. Tyler was reaching a breaking point. But Harold was. He was waiting, calm, anchored, and prepared. Because the perfect moment was coming. And when it arrived, Harold would be ready. By Thursday evening, Tyler's online behavior had taken a sharp turn from defensive to frantic. His posts became erratic, each one more disjointed and angry than the last. He blamed haters, fake friends, cancel culture, and of course, family betrayal. It would have been tragic if it weren't so predictable. Pressure had pushed him to the edge. But no one expected what came next. Harold was in his living room, quietly organizing paperwork for Mark, when his phone buzzed with a message from Aaron, one of the community center teens. "Turn on Tyler's livestream, now." Harold hesitated for half a second, then opened the link. Tyler appeared on screen, red-faced, pacing his messy bedroom, words tumbling out in a rapid, erratic stream. "I'm done staying quiet," he yelled into the camera. "Everyone's lying about me. My grandpa is twisting things, his friends are spreading rumors, my sponsor is scared of bad PR. This is all garbage." Thousands of viewers poured in, comment bubbles exploding up the side of the screen. Most weren't supportive. Many were confused. Others were waiting for the next meltdown. Tyler ranted on, breath shallow, voice cracking from emotional exhaustion. "I'm the victim here. I'm the one under attack. You think I faked anything. You think I lied. Seriously, you." He stopped suddenly, looking down at his screen. "Hold on, I need to show you something." And that was when everything changed. Tyler swiped up to toggle something on his phone, maybe brightness, maybe files. And for a split second, his entire camera roll flashed across the Vestream. Harold leaned forward, breath caught in his chest. There they were. Folders titled, "Grandpa Raw Footage. Abuse edits. Take 3 Crying." And inside the thumbnails, screenshots, clips, timelines of video edits showing Tyler piecing together false abuse scenes. His face fake crying. His voice rehearsing lines. At one point, a snippet showed him in Harold's living room adjusting camera angles before recording the fabricated accusations. It lasted less than 2 seconds. But the internet moved faster than Tyler ever could. Screenshots flooded the chat. Viewers clipped the stream, posting it to their own pages within seconds. Comments blew up. "Dude, you staged it." That's literal evidence. We saw the folders. This is over for you. Tyler didn't even realize what he'd done at first. He kept ranting, oblivious to the avalanche forming beneath his feet. But then the comments shifted. "What files?" he demanded, scrolling through the feed. "What are you talking about? Nothing happened." Harold watched as panic rippled across Tyler's features. He ended the livestream abruptly, but it was far too late. The damage was irreversible. Harold's phone rang almost instantly. "Mark." "I have the footage," Mark said, not even waiting for a greeting. "People forwarded it to me. This is it, Harry. This is the smoking gun." Harold swallowed. "The folders." "They're more than folders," Mark said, exhilarated and grave at once. "It's proof of fabrication, proof of malicious intent, proof he knowingly defamed you. He rehearsed the lies. He edited the lies. He stored the lies. Legally, this is a goldmine." Harold didn't smile. He didn't cheer. His heart sank at the sight of his grandson's self-destruction caught so clearly, so publicly. But beneath that sorrow was something steadier: certainty. The truth had surfaced and it wasn't going back under. Within 2 hours, the sponsor announced the termination of Tyler's contract. No apology, no soft phrasing. They stated clearly that he violated ethics clauses and misrepresented information in a way that damaged their reputation. They removed all content featuring him and encouraged users to report misleading claims. Denise showed up at Harold's door not long after, tears streaking her cheeks, body shaking from the weight of what she'd just witnessed. "Dad, I didn't know. I didn't want to believe he could," she broke off, covering her face. "How could he do this? How could he fake something like that? About you?" Harold held her as she sobbed, his own chest tight. "He's lost, sweetheart, but he has to face the consequences now." Denise pulled back, eyes red but clearer than they'd been in weeks. "Tell me what you need from me. Whatever it is, I won't protect him from the truth anymore." Harold nodded gently. After she left, the house grew still again. Harold returned to the table where Mark's documents lay waiting. This time, when he looked at them, he didn't feel hesitation. He felt readiness. Everything was aligned now. The evidence, the witnesses, the legal footing, the truth. Tyler had made the final mistake himself. Harold exhaled slowly, the weight of the moment settling through him. It was time to act. And he would do it decisively. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Tyler's online world had already begun to collapse. Harold didn't even have to check. Messages poured in from friends, from community center staff, even from neighbors who barely knew how to use their phones. Screenshots, alerts, forwarded clips, they all told the same story. Tyler was hemorrhaging followers. Overnight, his subscriber count dropped by the thousands. Comment sections once full of praise now swarmed with disbelief and anger. People who had defended him, who had laughed at his jokes, now accused him of manipulation, cruelty, and exploiting his own grandfather for fame. The internet, quick to crown idols, was even quicker to tear them down when the truth surfaced. Harold read only enough to understand the scope. He didn't relish any of it. A crumbling online empire wasn't something he wished on anyone, least of all his grandson. But choices had consequences, and Tyler had built his platform on borrowed dignity and fabricated pain. By mid-morning, Tyler's account received its first official strike. A warning banner appeared on his profile. Content flagged for harassment, misinformation, and harmful behavior. Shortly after, another notification reported certain videos being removed for violating policy. Some were the fake abuse clips. Others were earlier posts mocking Harold. The platform had turned its attention to everything. Mark called Harold with updates. "The platform's enforcement is ramping up. They're reviewing his entire account, Harry. It's not just a slap on the wrist this time." Harold listened quietly, pen in hand, making notes for the file he kept on the kitchen table. "Thank you, Mark." But the collapse wasn't only digital. Around noon, Denise called, voice strained. "Dad, I'm at Tara's house. Her parents just threw Tyler out. They said he's not allowed to film here anymore." Tara had been Tyler's closest friend, sometimes more than that, and her home had been his go-to filming spot. "What happened?" Harold asked gently. "They saw the live stream evidence," she said. "Her parents were furious. They said they won't have someone dishonest using their home for content. They told him he needed help, not a camera." Harold closed his eyes, the heaviness of it pressing into his chest. He didn't wish humiliation on Tyler, but the boy was discovering, painfully and publicly, that real life didn't bend to online personas. "And Tyler?" Harold asked. "He stormed off," Denise whispered, screaming at them. "He said everyone's turning against him because Grandpa weaponized the truth." She broke off, catching her breath. "Dad, he's unraveling." Harold didn't disagree. He could see it clearly himself later that afternoon when Tyler uploaded a shaky selfie video, his attempt at regaining control. His tone was defensive, brittle. "People are lying about me," he insisted. "This is all taken out of context. My family set me up. I'm being attacked for trying to speak my truth." But the public wasn't buying it. Within minutes, comments poured in. "We saw the files, dude. Admit what you did. Grandpa didn't ruin your career, you did." Tyler deleted the video, then reposted a new one, angrier, more frantic. He denied everything again, then blamed editing tricks, then accused the sponsor of conspiring with Harold, then deleted that too. It was a spiral, fast, chaotic, visible to anyone watching. Denise came over that evening, shoulders slumped, eyes exhausted. She dropped onto Harold's couch like her bones had given up. "Dad, please," she whispered. "Talk to him. He listens to you more than he listens to me. Tell him to apologize publicly. It's the only way he can save anything." Harold's heart ached at the desperation in her voice. "Sweetheart, I've tried. He doesn't want the truth, he wants control." Denise pressed her hands to her face. If he just said he lied, if he admitted it, people might forgive him. "Forgiveness isn't the problem," Harold said gently. "He doesn't think he's done anything wrong." A long silence filled the room. Denise knew it was true. Meanwhile, Tyler's posts grew fewer but more hostile. He lashed out at fake fans. He ranted about cancel culture. He insisted he would come back bigger than ever, even while his account bled followers by the minute. Mark sent another update late in the evening. "We're nearly ready to file. Tyler's behavior today only strengthens the case." Officer Cole checked in shortly after. Her message was simple. "He's escalating. Stay cautious. The moment he crosses one more line, we move forward." Harold stood by the window for a long time after that, watching the streetlights flicker on across the neighborhood. He wasn't celebrating Tyler's downfall. He wasn't gloating or vindicated. He was steady, centered, ready. Because all of this, the sponsor collapse, the follower fallout, the unraveling, was leading to one inevitable point: the legal confrontation. And Harold knew deep in his bones that it was almost time. Harold asked Denise to meet him at the small cafe near the community center, a quiet place where the clatter of dishes softened difficult conversations and where people tended to speak gently, as if the walls themselves understood fragility. Denise arrived looking exhausted, wrapped in a coat she hadn't bothered to button, her eyes heavy with sleeplessness. She sank into the seat across from Harold, fingers trembling around the coffee mug she hadn't yet tasted. Harold took a slow breath before speaking. "I want you to know something before anything else," he began. "I still love Tyler. Nothing that's happened changes that." Denise looked up sharply, tears rising with painful immediacy. "Then why does it feel like I'm losing both of you?" she whispered. Harold reached across the table, resting his hand over hers. "Because love doesn't erase consequences," he said softly. "If anything, it demands them. Tyler is hurting people. He's hurting himself. And if we keep pretending he'll stop on his own, we're only feeding the fire." Her lips trembled. I should have stopped him sooner. I should have listened when you first said something was wrong. Instead, I defended him. I kept telling myself he was just overwhelmed or misunderstood. I didn't want to believe my son could do something so cruel. Harold squeezed her hand. You trusted him. That's what mothers do. Denise shook her head, tears slipping down her cheeks. But I ignored the truth, and now it's all falling apart. Dad, I'm so sorry, so sorry for everything he's put you through. He didn't pull away. He didn't tell her not to cry. He let her feel every ounce of the heartbreak she'd been holding back for weeks. Because this, her finally seeing clearly, was its own kind of grief. She wasn't just witnessing Tyler's downfall. She was mourning the boy she thought she'd raised. When she finally steadied, Harold said gently, "We can love him and still hold him accountable. Those two things aren't opposites." Denise nodded slowly, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of her sweatshirt. "What happens next?" Harold exhaled. "Mark is finalizing everything today." As if summoned by his name, Harold's phone buzzed. A message from Mark. "Documents ready, meeting in an hour." Harold stood from the table, walked around to Denise's side, and helped her to her feet. They embraced, longer than usual, tighter than usual, both aware that what came next was no longer hypothetical. At Mark's office, a tidy room lined with case files and framed certifications, the air felt thicker, heavier. Mark spread out the stack of papers across his desk, every page the culmination of weeks of humiliation, documentation, and escalation. "These," Mark said, tapping the packet, "are the filings for defamation, harassment, and unauthorized commercial use of Harold's likeness. The live stream evidence, the sponsorship deal, the fake abuse edits. This is one of the strongest cases I've assembled in years." Denise flinched at every word, but she didn't look away. She forced herself to confront the magnitude of what Tyler had done. Mark continued, "Once this is submitted, the court will issue a summons. Tyler will have to appear. Judge Ellis is presiding, strict but fair. He doesn't tolerate digital misconduct." Harold nodded, absorbing each detail. He wasn't eager for legal warfare, but he was past hesitation, past hoping Tyler would magically correct course. Justice wasn't vengeance. It was a boundary, one that should have been drawn long ago. A knock sounded from the doorway. Officer Cole stepped inside, uniform crisp, expression professional but warm. "I wanted to stop by before you filed," she said. "I've been reviewing the case with my department. Tyler has crossed multiple legal lines, more than enough to justify the restraining order we discussed." Denise swallowed hard, turning away as though the words physically struck her. Officer Cole softened her tone. "I'm not saying this to condemn him. I'm saying this because it's serious. And because if this escalation continues without intervention, someone is going to get hurt, emotionally, reputationally, or worse." Harold nodded. The truth of it was undeniable. Tyler wasn't merely misguided. He was spiraling, and spirals always hit the ground eventually. Officer Cole looked at Harold with steady eyes. "You're doing the right thing. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is stop them before they destroy themselves." She handed him a final sheet. "When you're ready to sign, I'll file my part." Harold held the papers, feeling their weight, not in ounces but in consequence. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't wavering. He simply felt the gravity of being a grandfather placed in a position no elder should ever face. He signed. Later that evening, as Harold stood at his kitchen counter preparing tea, a soft thud landed against his front door. He opened it to find an envelope, thin, official, stamped with the county seal. "A court summons. Issued for Tyler Whitman." Harold held it silently, the cold air brushing against his face as he stared at the document that marked the turning point. The confrontation was no longer approaching. It had arrived. The summons hadn't even been in Harold's possession for 24 hours when Tyler showed up on his doorstep. No warning, no call, no apology. just the familiar rapid pounding of entitled urgency. Harold opened the door slowly, already bracing himself. Tyler stood there breathless, eyes rimmed red not from remorse but from panic. "Grandpa, we need to talk," he said, pushing past Harold into the living room without waiting for permission. He paced the room like a trapped animal, hands running through his hair. "You have to drop this. You have to." Harold closed the door quietly. "Tyler, I don't have to do anything except protect myself." Tyler spun around. "Protect yourself? From what?" His voice cracked, the desperation leaking through the bravado. "You're ruining my future. Do you get that? You're blowing up everything I've worked for." Harold studied him, really studied him. The slumped posture, the frantic breathing, the wild eyes. But nowhere did he see accountability. No recognition of harm. No understanding of the destruction he'd caused. "It's not me ruining your future," Harold said calmly. "It's the choices you made." Tyler's expression twisted. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. One mistake online and people cancel you forever. But you didn't have to escalate it. You could have talked to me like an adult instead of dragging the law into it." Harold lifted an eyebrow. "I tried talking many times." "That's not fair," Tyler snapped. "You're exaggerating everything. You're acting like I hurt you or something. I was just doing WH. At everyone does online." Harold didn't raise his voice. He didn't move. He simply let the truth sit between them. "You lied about me. You filmed me without permission. You used me for profit. You humiliated me. And when I asked you to stop, you doubled down." Tyler's jaw clenched, but instead of remorse, his gaze sharpened with accusation. "You're trying to destroy me. Admit it. This is revenge, that's all." "No," Harold said quietly. "This is accountability." Tyler scoffed loudly and turned away, only to find Denise standing in the doorway of the hall, having let herself in with the spare key Harold gave her years ago. She looked exhausted but resolute. "Mom," Tyler said, seizing the moment, tell him this is too far, tell him he's overreacting." He gestured wildly toward Harold. "You know he could end this right now. He just won't." Denise's voice was soft, but it didn't waver. "Tyler, I'm not helping you fight this." Tyler blinked as if she'd slapped him. "What?" "I won't testify for you," she said, standing straighter. "I won't defend what you did. I defended you for too long. I ignored the truth because I wanted to believe you were still the kid I raised. But you lied. You hurt Grandpa, and you're still trying to blame him." "No," Tyler said, shaking his head rapidly. "No, Mom, this is because you're emotional. He's manipulating you. He's manipulating everyone." Denise swallowed. "You manipulated yourself." Tyler turned away from her, breathing hard, fury building like a storm. "Fine," he spat. "If neither of you will help me, I'll help myself." He pulled out his phone, waving it in the air. "I'll make another video. I'll tell people what's really going on. I'll expose all of this. You think the internet won't take my side? They will. They always do when the truth comes out." Harold didn't move, but he pulled his own phone from his pocket, pressing record the moment Tyler made the threat. Tyler didn't even notice. He was too busy pacing, too busy shouting about betrayal, too busy drowning in his own false narrative. When he finally stormed out, slamming the door behind him, the house fell into a stunned quiet. Denise sank onto the couch, burying her face in her hands. "He's not listening to anyone," she whispered. "He's lost." Harold sat beside her. "Maybe, but this is necessary." She nodded weakly. "What happens now?" Harold lifted his phone, opened the recording of Tyler's threat, and forwarded it to Mark with a steady thumb. Another piece of evidence. Another step toward closure. A minute later, Mark called. "Got it. This seals the pattern of harassment. We're filing the last set of documents tonight." Harold's breath steadied. "And the hearing?" "It's confirmed," Mark said. "Judge Ellis set the date 2 weeks from today." Harold thanked him and hung up. He sat in the quiet of his living room, listening to the low hum of the refrigerator, the soft settling of the house as evening crept in. There was no triumph in his chest, only a steady resolve, heavier than grief but clearer than anger. The confrontation wasn't just coming. It was scheduled, stamped, inevitable. And Harold knew. The next step would break whatever illusion Tyler still clung to. The courthouse was colder than Harold expected, not in temperature but in atmosphere, sterile still, steeped in the quiet weight of consequences. He sat beside Mark at the petitioner's table, hands folded, breathing slow and steady. He wasn't afraid. He wasn't angry. He was simply present, anchored in a truth that had taken weeks to wrestle into the light. Across the aisle, Tyler slumped in his chair, hoodie pulled low, legs bouncing in restless agitation. He glanced around the courtroom as if searching for a sympathetic face, someone to reassure him that this was all a misunderstanding. Denise sat behind him, her expression taut with grief. She hadn't spoken to Tyler since his last threat. Today she had come as support for Harold, not as a shield for her son. When Judge Ellis entered, everyone rose. His presence filled the room with a stern, almost tangible authority. He was a man who had seen every variety of digital misconduct, from petty online disputes to reputational warfare with real-life fallout. And his reputation for cutting through excuses was legendary. "Please be seated," he said, adjusting his glasses as he reviewed the file in front of him. He scanned silently, but the faint twitch in his brow told Harold everything. The evidence spoke loudly. Mark rose first. "Your Honor, we are submitting documented instances of targeted harassment, defamation, unauthorized use of Mr. Whitman's likeness, and recordings demonstrating escalating digital misconduct." He clicked a remote, displaying screenshots, timestamps, and video clips onto the courtroom monitor. The first clip showed Tyler barging into Harold's home, camera raised, voice taunting. The next displayed the deleted videos mocking Harold. Then came the fabricated abuse clip, Tyler cry. Ing on cue, weaving falsehoods with practiced ease. Judge Ellis's expression tightened as Mark continued. "Finally, Your Honor, we have the livestream accident in which Mr. Whitman's grandson unintentionally revealed folders titled Abuse Edits, Take 3, Crying, and Grandpa Raw Footage. Screenshots taken by live viewers confirm the files were his." He played the recording. The courtroom shifted as the evidence unfolded, not dramatically but unmistakably. The air thickened, and Tyler's chair stopped bouncing. He stared at the floor, jaw clenched, face draining of its defiant flush. Judge Ellis turned sharply toward Tyler. "Mr. Whitman, do you dispute the authenticity of these videos or files?" Tyler swallowed hard. "People misunderstood. It was creative expression." Creative expression. The judge's voice cut through him. Fabricating abuse allegations is not creativity. It is character assassination. It is malicious, and it is illegal. Tyler shrank back. Harold didn't look at him, but he felt the collapse, felt the moment Tyler realized the courtroom wasn't an audience he could manipulate. This wasn't social media. There were no likes to chase, no comments to delete, no followers to sway. Only truth. Judge Ellis tapped a page with his pen. "I also reviewed the financial records. The defendant profited from content exploiting Mr. Whitman without consent." He looked directly at Tyler. "This is commercial defamation, harassment, exploitation of a vulnerable elder." Tyler's breath hitched. For the first time, he looked genuinely afraid. Mark glanced at Harold and gave a small, reassuring nod. The case was stronger than they had even hoped, but Harold didn't feel triumph. Only the solemn weight of watching a young man, once a boy he loved deeply, unravel under the consequences he had created. The judge continued, voice steady but unyielding. "My ruling is as follows." The room fell silent. "Effective immediately, Mr. Tyler Whitman is prohibited from contacting, filming, recording, referencing, or posting about Mr. Harold Whitman in any form, digital or physical. This includes direct communication, indirect communication, and online commentary. He paused, letting the words land. This is a formal restraining order, both digital and physical. Denise let out a broken breath behind Harold. Judge Ellis wasn't finished. Furthermore, he said, all existing content involving Mr. Whitman must be deleted within 48 hours. Failure to comply will result in contempt charges. Tyler blinked rapidly, tears gathering, but not from remorse, from fear. And finally, Judge Ellis concluded, I am issuing financial penalties for defamation and unauthorized commercial use of Mr. Whitman's likeness. Amount to be finalized after review of profits gained. Tyler's composure shattered. He slumped forward, face buried in his hands, shoulders trembling. He wasn't angry now. He wasn't defiant. He was undone by his own hubris, his own choices. Denise covered her mouth, silent tears slipping through her fingers. Harold felt her grief, but he didn't move to comfort her. This moment belonged to truth, not consolation. The judge stood. The gavel struck like a final line drawn through weeks of chaos. Court adjourned. Slowly, Harold rose. He didn't look at Tyler. He didn't need to. The verdict had spoken for him. He walked out of the courtroom with quiet dignity, shoulders squared, breath steady, not victorious but free. And outside, as the cold air brushed his face, Harold understood something clearly. The fight wasn't over, but for the first time, the law was standing beside him. In the days following the hearing, Harold felt something he hadn't experienced in months: quiet. Not silence, not emptiness, but a softer rhythm returning to his life, as though the world had exhaled with him. He woke early again, brewed coffee without dread curling in his stomach, and stepped onto his porch to breathe the cool Colorado morning air. For the first time since Tyler's spiral began, it didn't feel like danger waited behind every vibration of his phone. He resumed his routine at the community center, walking in with the same calm gait he'd always had, but now greeted with a warmth deeper than casual friendliness. Neighbors and staff paused their conversations to shake his hand, clap his shoulder, or simply offer a quiet nod of respect. No one brought up Tyler directly, out of courtesy, out of restraint, but their presence was acknowledgement enough. They had witnessed the storm, seen the truth emerge, and stood with him. George wandered over with 2 cups of coffee. Figured you earned a break, he said, handing one to Harold. Proud of you, Harry, not for winning anything, but for standing tall. Harold smiled lightly. I just wanted my life back. And now you've got it, George replied, piece by piece. That afternoon, Denise arrived at Harold's house. She hesitated on the doorstep like someone unsure if she still belonged there. Harold opened the door before she could knock. Her eyes were red, not from fresh tears but from the lingering ache of too many poured already. Dad, she whispered, voice trembling. You don't have to apologize again, Harold said gently. But she shook her head. I do, not because you need to hear it, but because I need to say it. I'm sorry for not believing you sooner, for defending him blindly, for putting you in the middle of something you didn't deserve. Harold took her hands, steadying her. What matters is that you came around when it counted. She exhaled shakily. I just hope one day he understands what he's done. Harold didn't comment on that hope. It was too raw, too uncertain. Instead, he pulled her into a quiet hug, feeling the fragile threads of their relationship stitching themselves back together. Later, he met with Mark in the office lined with legal textbooks and neatly labeled folders. Mark looked tired, casework always drained him, but he wore a small, satisfied smile. I filed the final protections this morning, he said. You now have a long-term digital and physical restraining order against Tyler. He can't contact you, reference you, or profit from anything connected to you. And if he violates any part of it, the consequences will be immediate. Harold nodded. Thank you, Mark, for everything. You did the hard part, Mark said. I just followed the paper trail you gave me. When Harold left, the weight on his shoulders felt lighter still. Layers of uncertainty peeled away, replaced by firm boundaries and legal clarity. Officer C. Ole stopped by later that week, standing on Harold's porch with her notepad tucked neatly into her jacket. She looked at him with the calm satisfaction of someone delivering long overdue closure. "Mr. Whitman, I wanted to let you know the case is officially closed on our end. You followed every instruction, documented everything, and you didn't escalate emotionally even once. That's rare." Harold gave a modest shrug. "I've lived long enough to know emotion doesn't fix much." "It guided you to the right choices," she said. "Take pride in that, and if anything new happens, call me directly." He watched her drive away, appreciating how the road looked different now, like a path returning to normal instead of a battlefield waiting to erupt. The next morning, Harold walked into his garage, the space that had once been filled with the sounds of Tyler laughing beside him, handing him screwdrivers, asking questions about wiring. The memories remained, but they didn't stab the way they used to. They simply existed, proof that love had been real, even if it had been betrayed. He opened his old red toolbox, its drawers full of tools worn smooth from decades of use. He gathered wrenches, pliers, soldering irons, each one carrying a story, and loaded them into a crate. At the youth workshop across town, the director blinked in surprise when Harold arrived with the donation. "Are you sure you want to part with these?" she asked. Harold smiled softly. "Tools don't belong on shelves. They belong in hands that want to learn." The teens gathered around as he opened the crate. Their excitement was genuine, pure in a way he hadn't seen in far too long. One boy lifted a wrench reverently, as though it were something sacred. "You can use them," Harold said. "All I ask is that you treat them with respect." He watched them dig eagerly through the tools, their laughter echoing through the workshop. It didn't erase what had happened, but it reminded him that he still had things to give. He still had purpose. Healing wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet. It was morning coffee. It was steady walks. It was neighbors nodding with respect. It was Denise trying, truly trying, to rebuild what had fractured. And as Harold stepped back from the workbench, hearing the buzz of youthful energy around him, he felt something settle deep inside. The life Tyler had shattered was rebuilding, one peaceful, intentional piece at a time. The hardest decisions Harold ever made in his life weren't the ones involving tools or wiring diagrams. They weren't during storms when entire neighborhoods went dark and he had to work by flashlight. No, the hardest decisions were the ones that involved people he loved. And the decision he faced now, sitting in Mark's office with a pen in his hand, was one of them. The updated will lay on the table in front of him, clean, concise, painfully final. Mark spoke gently but without softening the truth. "This doesn't have to be permanent, Harry. If Tyler ever changes, truly changes, you can amend it again. But right now, this protects you." Harold nodded. "I understand." He took a breath, steady and controlled, and signed. With that stroke of ink, Tyler was removed entirely. Not out of spite, not for revenge, but because Harold could no longer risk having his life's work, his home, his savings, the legacy he'd built, tangled in the fallout of someone who had proven willing to weaponize even family ties for personal gain. Denise remained in the will, though not unconditionally. Harold had worked with Mark to add clear provisions, funds for her stability, support for her home, and resources should she ever need long-term care. But not 1 cent was to reach Tyler unless Harold amended the document himself. The conditions weren't punishment. They were boundaries, a line drawn gently but firmly across the future. When Harold showed Denise later that afternoon, her hands trembled as she read. "Dad," she whispered, I don't deserve this." "You do," Harold said softly, "because you came back to the truth, and because you're trying." Tears filled her eyes, but she nodded, accepting both the gift and the responsibility. After the legal matters were handled, Mark arranged for someone else to help, someone who understood a battlefield Harold never wanted to step foot in: the digital world. Megan, A cybersecurity specialist Mark trusted, arrived with a laptop under one arm and a calm, confident smile. "Mr. Whitman," she said, shaking his hand, "I'm here to make sure no lingering digital thread connects back to Tyler in a way he could exploit." For 2 hours she combed through Harold's accounts, email, phone backups, devices synced to old logins Tyler once touched. "He doesn't have access now," she assured him, "but we're going to make it airtight." She reset passwords, closed unused accounts, implemented two-step verification across every device. "Digital boundaries," she explained, "are just as important as legal ones." When she finished, she gave Harold a list of instructions printed neatly on a single page. "Follow these, and you'll stay protected." Harold exhaled with relief he didn't know he'd been holding. "Thank you, Megan, truly." She smiled. "You're not alone in this, Mr. Whitman. None of us work alone." When she left, Harold walked through his house, noticing how much lighter it felt, like invisible threads had been cut. He blocked the last remaining access points Tyler might have used, old shared cloud photos, outdated app permissions. It wasn't vindictive. It was closure. In the days that followed, something unexpected began happening. Old friends, the kind who had drifted away due to time, not conflict, started reaching out. George invited him to a poker night he hadn't attended in years. Ellen from the community center asked if he'd join the walking group again. People he hadn't spoken to in a decade stopped him in grocery store aisles just to shake his hand and say, "We're glad you're doing all right, Harold." He didn't realize how much he'd withdrawn until he felt himself slowly returning. But the moment that meant the most came during a Thursday afternoon visit to the community center workshop. Several teens gathered around him, tools in hand, hesitant but eager. The director smiled warmly. "They've been asking if you'd mentor them. Not just today, regularly." Harold blinked, surprised. "Me, why?" One of the boys responded quietly, "You're patient, and you don't talk down to us." Another added, "And you actually know stuff, real stuff." Harold chuckled softly. "Well, I suppose that counts for something." The director asked gently, "Would you consider it, even once a week?" Harold looked around the workshop, wood shavings on the floor, the hum of enthusiasm, young faces full of curiosity rather than cynicism, and felt something inside him shift. A door opening where another had closed. "I'd be honored," he said. The teens grinned. Someone handed him a pair of safety goggles. Another cleared a space at the workbench. Harold stepped forward, a quiet pride warming his chest, not loud, not boastful, but deep and steady, like a foundation rebuilt. As he guided a young apprentice's hands on a drill press, he realized Tyler had closed one chapter of Harold's life, violently and painfully. But in doing so, he'd unintentionally opened another, one filled with purpose, renewal, and the kind of respect that can never be taken, only earned. And Harold, calm and resolute, stepped fully into it. Harold never imagined the youth workshop would become the center of his days, but as fall settled deeper into Colorado and the air grew sharper with the promise of winter, he found himself returning to the building again and again. The place hummed with energy, scattered chatter, clinking tools, the low buzz of machines in motion. It was a far cry from the chaos Tyler had created online. Here, purpose wasn't measured in views or followers. It lived in the quiet focus of young apprentices, in the sparks of curiosity that lit their faces when something finally clicked. One afternoon, Harold stood beside a boy named Jordan, guiding his hands as he tightened wiring into a small wooden lamp they'd been building. "Don't rush," Harold reminded him. "Electricity rewards patience." Jordan nodded, tongue poking at the corner of his mouth, concentrating hard. "I want it to be perfect," he said. Harold smiled softly. "Perfect comes from respect, not speed." The boy looked up at him then, and in his eyes Harold saw something he hadn't felt in a long time. Trust. The kind that came naturally, without manipulation, without performance. The kind he once felt from Tyler before content became more important than character. Across the room, another student called out that their soldering wasn't sticking. Another asked if Harold could check their circuit layout. He moved through the workshop at a comfortable pace, offering quiet advice, gentle corrections, and the sort of encouragement he'd once given freely in his garage at home. In every young face he helped, he saw small reflections of the man he once was: earnest, curious, willing to learn. And that recognition didn't ache the way he feared it might. Instead, it reminded him that what had been broken with Tyler didn't define him as a grandfather, a mentor, or a man. Slowly, carefully, Denise began rebuilding their relationship as well. She visited more often, sometimes just for coffee, sometimes to bring dinner, sometimes simply to sit in the quiet of his living room without saying much at all. It wasn't quick and it wasn't seamless, but healing rarely is. One evening she lingered after washing dishes, her voice gentle. "Dad, thank you for not shutting me out," she said, "for giving me space to see things clearly." Harold touched her hand. "We're family, that hasn't changed." Her eyes softened in a way that told him she was learning to forgive herself too, a harder task than forgiving others. But somewhere across town, Tyler exes. Ted in a different kind of quiet, one carved from isolation, not peace. Harold didn't follow Tyler's online accounts anymore. Mark had long advised against it. But the people who once watched Tyler religiously had stopped. His audience evaporated. His collaborations ended. The platform flagged his content repeatedly until only barren traces of his activity remained. Harold didn't gloat when he heard. He didn't feel vindicated. Instead, he felt a solemn parental sorrow, a grief not for what Tyler had done, but for the man he refused to become. Tyler had spiraled privately, without applause, without fuel, without anyone to cheer for the destruction he once broadcast proudly. Sometimes Harold wondered if that silence was what Tyler feared most. But Harold refused to let his grandson's downfall shape the rest of his own life. He focused on growth, his, not Tyler's. He learned woodworking techniques with the apprentices. He attended a few community lectures on teaching youth. He even signed up for a weekend class on digital literacy, wanting to better understand the world that had once blindsided him. Mark stopped by the house often, checking in with updates. One afternoon, after finalizing a few lingering legal protections, Mark leaned back in his chair and said, "Harry, it's time to enjoy your peace. You earned it, and you chose the right battles." Harold smiled, the warmth of gratitude blooming quietly in his chest. "Peace feels strange," he admitted. "Good strange?" Mark asked. "Better than I expected." Mark nodded, "Then lean into it." Harold did. Days blended into gentle routines. Mornings at the workshop, afternoons fixing things around the community center, evenings with Denise or reading on his porch as the sun dipped behind the mountains. Piece by piece, life rebuilt itself, not the life that existed before Tyler's betrayal, but something sturdier, something that didn't crumble under pressure, something rooted not in waiting for disaster but in cultivating purpose. One evening, as Harold locked up the workshop, he paused to look at the projects displayed on the shelves: lamps, small toolboxes, simple radios wired by hands still learning but eager to grow. He felt pride, not just in the work but in the kids, in his role, in the quiet dignity of giving back. And beneath it all, he felt something deeper. A legacy built on respect. Not content. Not clout. Not the shallow applause of strangers. A legacy earned the long, honest way, one steady moment at a time. And for the first time in a long while, Harold stepped into the night with a profound sense of purpose rising inside him, solid, enduring, and entirely his own. Snow melted into thin silver streams along the sidewalk as Harold made his way toward the workshop, the faint hum of tools vibrating through the building long before he reached the door. It was testing day, an unofficial milestone the kids had been buzzing about for weeks. Their first real projects were finished, painted, wired, sanded, and soldered by their own hands. Harold had watched every step with a quiet pride he rarely voiced aloud. When he stepped inside, he was greeted by a chorus of overlapping voices. "Mr. Whitman, plug it in, plug it in." Wait, I want him to see mine first." "No, he helped me with my circuit board the longest." Harold lifted his palms with a soft laugh. "One at a time now. Electricity has rules, we follow them." The kids gathered around, placing their projects on the central table, lamps made from repurposed pipes, small radios with glowing displays, wooden tool caddies etched with initials. Harold tested each one carefully. A flick of a switch, a beam of warm light, a soft crackle of static followed by pulling in a local station. Cheers erupted with each successful activation. "You did this," Harold told them. "All I did was point the way." A girl named Mia shook her head. "You taught us patience. None of us had that before." She looked up at him earnestly. "Thank you for not giving up on us when we messed up." Harold felt a quiet warmth spread through him, the kind that came not from praise, but from knowing he'd helped shape something real, something lasting. Respect earned, not demanded. Impact created, not captured on camera. As the kids dispersed to test each other's work, Harold stepped to the side, watching them celebrate. Someone approached softly. Denise. She wore a wool coat, cheeks rosy from the cold, eyes calm in a way he hadn't seen in years. She slipped her arm around his, leaning into him with a gentle familiarity. "I wanted to see what you've been up to," she said. "They adore you." Harold smiled. "They work hard, makes it easy to show up." She exhaled slowly. "Dad, I'm proud of you." The simplicity of it carried more weight than any elaborate apology. It came from a daughter who had walked through fire and found her footing again. "You didn't let Tyler break you, or define you." Harold looked down at her hand resting on his arm. "I had my moment." He said, "but life gives you more chapters than you think." They stood there together, watching the apprentices test and tinker, their laughter filling every corner of the room. It was the kind of noise that stitched wounds, even the ones no one talked about aloud. Around noon, Mark entered the workshop with a thick envelope tucked under his arm. He greeted the teens politely, then approached Harold and Denise. "Well," Mark said, handing Harold the envelope, "this is the last of it. All estate protection sealed. No loopholes, no vulnerabilities. Everything is in your name and under your control." Harold accepted the paperwork with a grateful nod. "You've been a good friend, Mark." "Just doing what needed to be done," Mark replied, though his smile suggested something warmer. "Now you can move forward without looking over your shoulder." He stayed a few minutes longer, admiring the kids' projects before excusing himself for a meeting downtown. As he left, another visitor appeared in the doorway, Officer Cole. She stepped in with her usual calm authority, scanning the workshop with a polite smile. "Mr. Whitman," she greeted, "I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd check in, making sure you're settling into your quieter life." Harold chuckled. "Quieter and fuller, if that makes any sense." "It does," she said, "and I'm glad to see it." Denise thanked her quietly, gratitude layering her voice. Officer Cole assured them both that the restraining order remained fully active and that Tyler had complied so far. No breaches, no contact attempts, no new trouble. "I think he's finally understanding boundaries," she said. "Painful lessons, but necessary ones." Harold nodded. "I hope he finds his way, truly." Officer Cole held his gaze a moment, measuring, respectful, before leaving them to their day. As afternoon sunlight slanted through the workshop windows, dust motes drifting like golden flecks in the air, Harold returned to the center of the room. The teens were gathered again, calling him over to admire another project they'd finally managed to get working. He walked toward them, steady and calm, surrounded not by judgment or mockery or false narratives, but by people who valued him for what he gave, for who he was, for the steadiness he embodied. Denise watched him from across the room, eyes warm with understanding. Mark's legal protection ensured his future. Officer Cole's diligence ensured his safety. The teen's gratitude ensured his purpose. And standing there, listening to the excited chatter of kids who respected him far more deeply than Tyler ever had, Harold felt something settle inside him, something whole. For the first time in years, Harold felt seen for who he truly was, not for how someone tried to mock him.